I'm a lawyer. We handle serious injury cases in DC and Maryland and Virginia. Mostly for people who get hurt at work, on the roads due to medical malpractice, and we sue insurance companies for people who to get their long-term disability benefits after serious injury or illness, and they can't work as a result of that. So we're used to conflict, I gotta say. I mean, that's a big part of my professional life. But today I want to talk to you, and I've got a special guest with me today. We're going to talk to you about something that's a little different, and it's something I think a lot of people are dealing with right now, and that is family tension and conflict. So I want to introduce our guest today, Regina DeMeo. Regina, I've known for 20 years now or so. She's an accomplished family law lawyer in Bethesda in both Maryland and DC, and a professor at GW Law School. So I thought it'd be great to get her perspective on this. So welcome, Regina.
Thanks so much for having me, Frank.
Absolutely. Well, I know that's a pretty brief intro, but if you wouldn't mind giving us, a little bit about your background, or tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I'm originally from New York City, and I came to the DC area in 1990 when I went to Georgetown undergrad. And then I completed GW Law School in 98, during which time I was your law clerk, by the way. So that's how long we've known each other.
That's right. It's been a long time. That's right.
Yep, for sure. So when I graduated GW Law, I went straight into family law, and that's what I've been doing for the last 21 years. And on top of that, about 10 years ago, I started lecturing at the law school. So I've lectured at Howard, Georgetown, and GW on family law issues. And this year I did also join the faculty, so I was part-time teaching family law in GW Law School.
Fantastic. And we'll get a little bit more into your professional background and how that can kind of help people today as we talk about it. But I know you're also the author of a children's book, aren't you? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Right. So in my former life, I was a gymnast, and I wrote a children's book called Gina the Gymnast. I love children. I really do love gymnastics and all sports. I think they teach a lot of skills to kids, and those skills have still carried through with me even to this day. Like, I am very regimented about what I eat, working out. I'm very, organized, because I had to be back then in order to make 3 hours a day possible for training and competing all over the country, because I was a national gymnast. And I really did get the travel bug at a very early age. So that's a very formative part of who I am, even though people still ask, like, oh, do you still do it today? Like, look, I'm in my 40s, I'm a mom, and I'm a full-time lawyer. So no, I don't still do gymnastics.
Yeah, that's what, a lot of us played sports when we were younger that we can't quite continue them as we get older for so many reasons. I know every time I try, it usually results in a cortisone injection or some other therapy for an injury when I'm trying to play with my kids who have far surpassed me, athletically, at least at this point. All right, Regina, well, that sounds great. Let's talk a little bit about, balancing work, kids, school. Maybe people are worried about, an elderly parent, with the coronavirus and our quarantines and our stay-at-home orders. Obviously you're a family law lawyer, so you see things from that perspective. You deal with a lot of family law conflicts. You're a mom, you've got a family, you're part of a family, of course. I'd say first is there any wonder that there's tension and conflict out there when we're all sort of stuck at home?
No, this is definitely a perfect storm, right? We all, first of all, our boundaries are being invaded. Usually my son would go to school from 9 to 3, so I would have some time to myself. Now he's here all the time. My coping mechanisms are not available, some of them, right? Like going to yoga class is not an option except virtually, but I actually like being live with the person in front of me. So, I mean, my partner is a big golfer. He usually golfs 3 to 4 times a week. Obviously, that's not an option right now. So a lot of us are really suffering. Not that we normally don't have good coping skills, but these have been taken away from us. And then we are spending time 24/7. So it's like this perfect storm. Plus there's such uncertainty. I mean, so many parents don't know if they're going to be able to send their kids to summer camp, and it's already the end of April, or some kids don't know if they're going to be able to go to summer school. GW is only doing online summer school and the dorms are closed. So, it's definitely making people adapt to their plans. And I'm an Uber planner, so this is particularly hard for me. Like, I like to build in some sort of reward for myself. Well, I'm going to work hard for the next, 3 months, and I'm going to go on this great weekend getaway. Well, the weekend getaway is not happening anytime soon. So it's definitely tough on everybody. So the most important thing I could say is just like, we have to be understanding that we're not at our best selves right now.
That's a great point about the planning and the change. I was on a call. I have a son who attends the University of Virginia, and I was on a call with, university personnel just last night, and they indicated that 75% of the students have changed their plans, for the summer, whether it's the loss of an internship or a job, or the not taking a class, studying abroad, what have you. But yeah, there's certainly so much of that. How much, and I guess the question is, how much of that, uncertainty on COVID-19 and when things will be open and how things were, how people are going to be able to feel and interact. I mean, how much of that do you think really affects people at this point?
It really depends on the person, because I have to say my son is definitely meant to survive this. He's an introvert who loves staying at home. So he's actually not freaking out by all of this. But if you're an extrovert like me and you thrive off other people's energy, this could be a really difficult test right now. I mean, I can't get together with my friends except through Zoom. I can't meet with my students except, during just our phone calls or weekly meetings. For me, it's a very painful exercise in, learning to find your own happiness. Whereas there are some people that are actually going to be quite okay, staying at home and streaming Netflix for 8 hours. So that also, I think, is interesting, because we don't normally marry our carbon copy. So it is most likely that your partner is the opposite of you. And that can be difficult.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I think that is, at least anecdotally, I sort of find the same thing, that yes, that you often have complementary, if you will, attitudes, skills, outlooks with the people you live with, with your family members or the people you're close with. So absolutely, I can see that. And yeah, and some people, it is going to affect some people more significantly than others. There's no doubt. Kids, adults, the elderly, everyone. I think one of the keys is really communication and empathy with the people you're living with. So when you recognize, tension and conflict that's coming up, sometimes it's really not because of what they, have or haven't done, as far as like leaving dishes in the sink or what have you, as an example. But it's about trying to deal with all the uncertainty around what's going to happen. And for me personally, I'm from sort of the parenting school of like, what the hell's your problem? Why are you doing that? And that's not always the best outlook. Do you find, are there any ways you think people can kind of change from the what the hell is your problem to a more empathetic or understanding or successful communication skills?
Yeah, I mean, I find Dr. Gottman's book is really amazing, 7 Ways to Have a Better Marriage. And then there's another book, Making It Last, that he wrote. And, basically he talks about communication skills is key in a marriage, right? And it's not just in a marriage. I mean, I use those skills with my son too, right? So I tend to, like you, sometimes have a really harsh startup, right? Like, why'd you leave those dishes in the sink? Right? But instead, like what he recommends is more like what Brene Brown says about how about just being vulnerable, right? So if you start off saying, I'm feeling so overwhelmed, and it really would be helpful to me if you could put some dishes away or help out with the laundry, right? That automatically disarms the other person, and they're like, oh wow, she needs help. Okay, yeah, I want to help her. I think innately we want to help other human beings. And so if you can learn that the harsh startup is not serving your own best interest, and learn to reprogram yourself. I mean, it's really, I mean, it took me a long time to retrain myself. I mean, I'm from New York. I'm meant to be harsh, right? But softening those edges actually gets you much further, especially with your significant other.
Yeah, easier said than done, I suspect. But yeah, I suppose you've certainly seen instances of that. With people you work with over time that can get better at that. I take it, right?
Yeah, a lot of my clients, it's kind of unfortunate, but it's only after the divorce that they realize, wow, great, maybe I wasn't the best communicator, right? And they have an incentive, either because one, they want to do better in their next relationship, or two, because they still have to co-parent with this person that they're no longer married to. So a lot of people work with divorce coaches or some sort of life coach and really work on bettering themselves. And to be honest, that's how I did it. Like I needed a coach. I was like, I need to be better at communicating my needs, my concerns, and that's a great way to, and you can do that now. Like there's a lot of therapists available doing telehealth calls that are available to help you through this difficult time.
No, absolutely. And, I think you're right. There are a lot of resources out there. With technology, there's a lot of benefits, telehealth, teletherapy, even tele-exercise classes, are prevalent now. And yeah, we can all sort of make use of those. I mean, like I said, I'm used to some of this, I would say, because my clients are typically so seriously injured, they can't, work. Some of them can't care for themselves. They're dealing with a difficult insurance company. So it's stressful. And we always try to work with them, really hard with them, to kind of take away the stress, the anxiety, the worry that they're feeling. And we're seeing the same thing now with people who don't have a serious injury. They're worried about the economic uncertainty, certainly if they're going to still have a job in 2 or 3 or 6 months, and what's going to happen with the economy. They're worried about their health. Are they going to bring something home to an elderly parent, or someone who's already has asthma or some underlying pulmonary condition? So people are really stressed. One of the things, that helps me when I'm sort of stuck at home or kind of in this situation is certainly exercise, and especially surprisingly walking, which I'd never really done, other than walk my dog to any real extent before. But do you see that as well, Regina?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing yoga every day. A lot of my clients are meditating. There's apps you can use on your phone to just do like a 5-minute guided meditation in the morning or in the evening to unwind. I have to read at least 30 minutes before I go to sleep, and I'm definitely not watching the news right before I go to sleep. That's going to be super upsetting. So it's like definitely figuring out the triggers and what you want to avoid, and then finding good coping mechanisms for yourself.
Mhm. Yeah, I know I think that's the key is sort of reaching out, trying in the beginning, some of your coping mechanisms of some of your release for tension and conflict, what have you, have been taken away, then, take the opportunity to look for others that can help you.
Absolutely.
Any good resources you have on that, Regina, or, you know,
I mean, I'm a fan of Gottman and Brene Brown. Brene Brown is just so amazing. She has all these YouTube videos and really talks a lot about getting in touch with your fears and facing your fears and being vulnerable and sharing that with your partner. Like my partner is a medical professional. He's seeing patients every day, even during this crisis, right? So I mean, it's a horrible thing that we all have to deal with, and we obviously have to talk about any concerns we have and set up protocols for maintaining safety. But these are difficult times that everyone has to work through, and I think it could really be a great opportunity to build your relationship. I mean, it's the perfect test of a relationship, how well you can communicate during this crisis, support each other, uh, you know, be positive. I mean, nobody needs a Debbie Downer right now. You can't have two people running around the house like, oh my God, like the sky is falling. Like, right? This is a great opportunity to show what an amazing, strong partner you can be, and to just be empathetic, like you said, and work on toning down the harshness. You also don't want to completely shut down on somebody. Like, this is not the time to shut down. This is really the time to, like I said to you before the call started, finding ways to build in your own fun. Like, date night is still important to us. We're still dressing up and getting a nice meal out one day a week, because we have to maintain some sort of normalcy and fun in our relationship.
absolutely. And I think that's a great point, Regina, is, this is an opportunity. And one of the things that, that you can do as an individual, as, a member of a family, as, an employee, or as a business person, or what have you, in any aspect of your life, is to take action. And, just the virtue of taking action and being positive, doing something, can often help, and can really help with your mental status, your emotional, your psyche, how you feel about things. And that's something that you control. I mean, we all have, we can't control the coronavirus or the larger economy, but we can control how we react to things, and, the choices that we make and the actions that we take. So I think that's just critically important, at a time like this, especially. I mean, all the time, candidly, but certainly now, to try to, to prevent yourself from, or keep yourself from being a Debbie Downer, like you say.
Yeah, and picking your battles is it's never been more important, right? Like, this is not the time to be nitpicking about little things. Like, we're just like, this is a great opportunity to really think about your priorities, think about what's really important to you, like what's your mission as a family. Like, we all have to redefine sort of our vision. I had a very different vision for 2020, I'm going to tell you. But, so, okay, it's about adapting. It's about being able to change and create a new future of what you see as moving forward together.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I know, Regina, a lot of your professional work is as a mediator, or as part of the, collaborative process for helping families and couples work through family law issues, or family issues, really. Helping them settle, resolve, their issues, whether it's a divorce, custody, or what have you. And I mean, we're already seeing, a lot of reports, in the media, and I think China is already seeing that, that there will be more domestic violence, or more divorces, or more family law issues as a result of this. I mean, how, what are some of positive steps that you recommend to sort of resolving conflict so that people don't get to that point?
Well, definitely being able to communicate effectively is important. I mean, right now everybody has to go through their expenses and figure out where they can make some cuts, right? That's a no-brainer. And this is a time to be really candid with your partner if you really don't understand finances, or you really don't know how to make cuts, and seek other professionals. Like, in a lot of my mediations, it's so unfortunate that people wait till the end to realize and confess, I have no idea what I'm doing with the money. I have no idea how we racked up all this debt. And, there are professionals that will help people work through their financial issues, work through their communication issues. My job is that when I'm a mediator in family law cases, I'm dealing with usually the parenting plans, coming up with an agreement on how they're going to share time with their kids. And then, if there's any requests for support, figuring out what's available to make that work, and try and get an agreement accepted by the courts. Right? But any of the techniques we use in mediation, everybody, I wish they could use it at home, right? It's always about really talk about what your goals are and what are your concerns, right? And then once you've done that, what's the problem that needs to be solved? We call it framing the issue, but it's like, okay, right? Like, we're obviously spending too much and not bringing in enough income. That's the problem. So how are we going to solve it? And the next step would be to brainstorm. Like, there's no, in a brainstorming session, there's no wrong suggestion, right? One crazy option could be like, well, let's just list the house for sale now. Well, it might seem crazy, but 6 months from now, that might not seem like such a crazy option. So put everything out there, all the possibilities of what's out there. And then you start to evaluate the options and hopefully narrow the options till you get to a mutually agreeable resolution. And I mean, I do that even with my son. Whenever there's a problem, it's like, okay, my concern is you're not getting your work done right now, and since there's no school, you're spending a lot of time on Netflix, right? That's my concern. My goal is I want him to do well in school. That's really easy. And then, having him talk to me about, well, all right, so what do we need? Do we need to set some boundaries around screen time? Or do we need to put him on a schedule? Does he need me to be next to him a certain number of hours to help him focus? If you tell somebody this is my problem and I need your help, I think people will feel like they're invited into that conversation and they'll participate. It's a very different way than me just starting off yelling at somebody saying you're not doing your work and you need to step up. I mean, that's just really not an effective way to invite someone to help me find a solution.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice. I really love the tip on brainstorming, because I think, that's something that a lot of people, myself included, sometimes, overlook. But, to brainstorm, to just write things out, to have sort of that vision and write it out is critical to know, or to get a sense of, what's possible, where you're going, give you greater ideas or different ideas to talk through. And you're right, what sounds crazy today may sound like a great idea. It may be a great idea 6 months from now. Yeah, so that's a great tip, I think.
Well, it's part of a bigger discussion. There's a whole seminar on it. There's books about it. But, there's what we call positional bargaining. And I think a lot of people are trained to go in saying, here's my position, and this is why it's the best idea, right? And so a lot of people are trained and wired to argue that way. And it's very different when you're in a family situation, right? You can be that way in court. You're trained to be that way in court, right? But in your family life, I'm sure that would not go over
I mean,
well.
I act a lot differently with. Yeah, that's so true. I mean, I act a lot differently with insurance company lawyers than I do, hopefully, with my own family. But we do have a few questions, Regina, that we got beforehand that I'd like to ask you,
Yeah.
if you don't mind, if you participants submitted those. What do you think is the #1 relationship issue that people will see crop?
I didn't hear the question because you kind of broke up.
Oh, sorry. What do you think is the #1 relationship issue that people will see crop up in quarantine, and how can they prepare for it?
Right now, it's the #1 issue is a lack of stress management. A lot of us have lost some of our go-to coping mechanisms. So that's really the problem. And the solution is try and just pick your battles and be as empathetic and understanding as you can of the other person.
Yeah, no, definitely, especially in a time when, stress is ramped up and, like you just said, coping mechanisms are reduced. And yeah, and just helping people, people just have to, it may be too late to prepare for it, so to speak, but it's never too late to improve on it, I would say. Another question someone had was, some people see the off-site work situations becoming the norm. How do you think that will affect people's marriages over the long term?
I think people are really going to have to learn to set boundaries, right? It's really going to be important to say to somebody, look, from 9 to 3, I really need to do my work. You can't interrupt me to make lunch for you. You can't like come and ask me to go on a walk with you as much as I would love to. Like, these are the hours that I am not going to be available. Act as if I really wasn't here, right? And again, it's just about making the request in a very soft manner and presenting it as a problem that you need help with.
All right. What are some real life family law issues that you have seen crop up during quarantine?
So the one that's already definitely on the rise is a request to modify alimony or child support. These are legal obligations that people are going to have to seek a remedy through the courts to reduce, right? They're going to have to show that there was a change in their financial circumstances as a result of COVID-19. Obviously, if they got laid off, if they're furloughed, there's very easy ways to document that there's been a change. And so I already have several cases where people are asking to go ahead and file to make those modifications, because the court can only modify retroactively to the date of filing. So if you're waiting, now's not a good time to wait.
Okay, so if you're already in a situation where you're separated, divorced, or you have like a child custody, sharing agreement or arrangement with the court, obviously this is COVID and quarantine is affecting all of that, right? I mean, how are the courts dealing with that? If you need, if someone needs relief, or what should they do? How can they, kind of modify that or get that squared away, or how should they, without court intervention?
Right. So if you have a court order or an agreement that has a time sharing arrangement in place, you're supposed to follow that. You are not supposed to right now say, oh, well, since it's COVID-19, I just want the kid to stay here, and then violate an agreement or court order. That is going to backfire big time once the courts reopen and start hearing those kinds of cases, because they don't like an abuse of power. And for someone to be making a unilateral decision that would in any way prevent the child from having regular and frequent contact with both parents. So in a case where there is a violation, you could certainly file now, but the problem is there's only 3 judges in Montgomery County, when normally we'd have 25 in the courthouse, and they have to pick and choose what are the biggest emergencies at that time. So you could file, and it may be a while before you actually get a hearing.
Mm-hmm. And then I take it is, I take it if someone came to you with an issue like that, um, would you counsel them? How would you counsel them to sort of, try to resolve that on their own? Is that the best course, before trying to get some kind of relief from the courts, which it sounds like you're not going to get for a long time anyway?
Right. I mean, they're really recommending that people try to do mediation as much as possible, or alternate dispute resolution, which could include collaborative divorce. And and those all are available online. So we are trained to do Zoom conference calls and do Zoom mediation for people, or FaceTime or Skype, whatever the technology is that people feel like using. But you really do need usually a neutral person to help guide you through like, what are the options, what are the possible solutions, right? And so there's parent coaches that can do this also, help a family work out an arrangement. But the more you can agree to on your own until the courts reopen, that's really the best thing to do.
Mm-hmm. And tell us a little bit, Regina. I think we mentioned it or touched on it before, but what is the collaborative process in family law? How does that work? Why should people consider it? I know you have had a role in that for a long time. In fact, you're one of the, you kind of started that many years ago. I remember talking to you, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago about that. But tell us a little bit about that, what it is, why you should consider it, or how it works.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I wish I had started it. I didn't. Actually, it was this guy in Minnesota. His name is Stu Webb, and he came up with this concept and presented it at an ABA conference, and then it took off from there. So I have to give credit to Stu. But it's meant to be for families that, like, if you have a couple and they go to mediation, but there's a power imbalance or someone's not able to advocate for themselves, and that's a problem, because the mediator is not there to take sides or help somebody advocate for themselves. That you're supposed to be a neutral, and so if mediation is uncomfortable, the next alternative would be to do the collaborative process, where each party picks an attorney, and then you do 4-way meetings. Now, all 4 people are still focused on reaching an out-of-court settlement, and the 2 lawyers are working more as a team, but at least you don't feel like you're by yourself, right? Like you each have your own attorney to bounce ideas off of, prepare you for each meeting, and so it's, if someone needs a little bit more hand-holding, I guess is the best way to say it, this is a nicer step up from mediation without going to court.
Right. So I take it it's supposed to take some of the, because we always hear about divorce cases and some of the sting that is there, both financially, emotionally, the length of time that cases take, and the effect on children or others in the family. So is like the collaborative process, does that address or kind of minimize that to the extent that it can?
I mean, yeah, because the beauty is we can go as quickly as we want, right? So in a lot of my cases, people will schedule the collaborative meetings and they'll say, hey, can we do one every 2 weeks? So, in a couple of sessions, we can make a lot of progress and be done. Whereas good luck having that sort of speed in a court setting. And I've also had to work the opposite way. I've had a couple of clients who got really sick during the collaborative process. So we all agreed to sort of take a break and slow things down. Whereas, and I know that when you go to court, the court deadlines are the court deadlines. There is very little forgiveness in terms of meeting your filing deadlines, the deadline for trying mediation. All of those dates are usually pretty hard to move. And so that's the benefit of mediation or collaborative. You're much more in control of the speed and the cost, because if again, in mediation, it's a 2-hour session, this is how much it's going to cost. And so you pay as you go. You're in total control of how much you're spending. When you hire an attorney to go to court, we want big fat retainers, because we know we're going to be filing documents, appearing in court. For me, it's going to be at least an 8-month process of working with you. So those retainers are thousands of dollars, like 10,000 and up.
Yeah. I think you made a great point about control, and that's, that's so critical. And I say that to my clients all the time. If we're approaching trial and we're trying to settle the case, I mean, the one thing with settlement is you have control. You, the client, make the decision about your life and your case, other than, give it to a jury, 6 or 8 people that you don't know and have never met, or a judge, same thing, who's going to make that decision. And you may be happy with it, you may not be, but it's out of your control once it gets that far. So that's really interesting. One other thing sort of along those lines, Regina, I would say, and I know you mentioned it, but I know it's on a lot of people's minds, and it's gonna be, given the state of the economy and unemployment. But what do people do if they're in this situation, and they're considering a change in their family status, or things just aren't working, or maybe they're already separated or divorced, or paying alimony or child support, and they do lose their job, or they're gonna lose their job coming up. How did they, try to take control of that, or what should they do in that situation?
Right. So in like those cases that I said that I recently got, we are filing right away because of the importance of filing as quickly as possible. But we've also agreed to go to mediation. So even though we filed, there's nothing that's going to happen in those cases for months. So we've got 4 or 5 months where we may as well agree to a mediator and try and have a conversation, right? And like that is going to be the best way to resolve these things. Like I've always done that. I mean, I've always, if I had to file, because there's an importance about filing, so the retroactive ability of the court is secure, right? I still always say that doesn't exclude the possibility of trying to reach a resolution. And 90% of family cases do settle. So like odds are in your favor, you're going to reach a settlement. Because especially with support, it's just basic math. What is it that someone can reasonably pay, and what does the other person need? And let's find some sort of compromise there.
Sure. And I take it it's better, if you do have some kind of order in place, it's better to get out in front of that if you know you're going to lose your job, or if you've just lost your job, rather than, just not pay it or allow it to go into arrears. I assume it's like any other debt, probably worse, right? As far as collection.
It's worse because child support is pretty important. And if child support enforcement goes after you, not only can they garnish your wages, they can intercept a tax refund, they can take away your driver's license, they can take away your professional license, like your ability to practice law. I mean, there are some very harsh consequences to not paying the support amount that you're due.
Okay. So get out in front of it early, right? Yeah. Communicate, reach out. We do have one other question we just got. Can you see any new law as a result of shelter in place regarding, family law, separation, custody, process? I take it anything like that. Anything new you can see on the horizon as a result of this?
I mean, the new things we're seeing are the ability of the court to embrace technology. So like next month, for the first time ever, we're going to have uncontested divorces by phone. So I think that as reluctant as we've been to embrace technology, this is forcing us in the courts to really embrace it. And Montgomery County was supposed to have online filing available, like e-filing, by this year. Now that's not happening, but I can assure you that they're making every possible effort to run that system through so that it is up and running quickly. And I think that it's more in the technology that you're going to see the biggest change. It's not that the law is really substantively going to change.
Mm-hmm. Any changes you'd like to see, or anything that that you've sort of adapted your practice that you think is going to be a good and lasting change for the better?
I do think that the ability of people to just get more comfortable with talking to me by phone and or Zoom conference, I mean, it's saving so much time for people to like not have to like drive to my office, make an appointment, find parking. Like it's I think we're all getting really comfortable with being able to access one another and just do it online. And you know, and kind of this pay as you go process is I think much more affordable for people. So, you know, if they're only paying when they want to do a call with me, as opposed to having to pay a huge retainer or deposit up front, that's I think something that people could really stomach, especially going forward, because it's going to take a while for us to recover from this economically.
Sure. No, absolutely. And I think it's the same, you know, people are getting the same value from it, even if it's by video. But you're right, they don't have to drive, they don't have to pay up front, they don't have to do, you know, all those other things associated with it traditionally, you know, what they'd have to do to see a lawyer or any other professional for that matter. One of the things I think coronavirus that I've certainly learned out of it, or a lesson is, you know, don't put things off. I mean, none of us is promised tomorrow, okay? Not with our, you know, not with our health, not with our business, not with our case, if we have one or what have you. And I've been finding people, like especially in our long-term disability practice, where, you know, people have been probably hanging on. They have a disease, they have a you know, a medical process where they really are coming to the end of their ability to work, but they've sort of been hanging in there. But the ones who take action, the smart ones, are those who reach out and say, okay, I know I'm going to be disabled soon. I'm just barely hanging on. How can I, you know, what steps should I take to make sure that I get my, you know, my disability, you know, claim forms in order, that I make sure that, you know, is my doctor on board with it? Do I understand my insurance policy for this and how much I will be receiving in benefits and, you know, and all of that. So I think that's kind of critical with any kind of legal and family issues, is to take that action, take that initiative, because we don't know what's going to happen down the road, you know, when everything opens again, do we?
No, and I agree that, I mean, it's sort of like this kick in the butt that we've all had. Like all of a sudden I have former clients asking me, hey, you know, like you told me a while ago to get my trust and estates documents updated, but I haven't done that. Like, who should I call, right? And so, you know, just like people are like finally spring cleaning because you have nothing better to do, so you're going through your closets. Great, because you know what? If you have to sell the house, it needs to show well. So the decluttering right now is a perfect project to embrace. If you haven't looked at your insurance needs, this is a perfect time. I have a friend who's going crazy right now with phone calls, because, you know, people are like, hey, do I have enough life insurance? I don't, and, you know, are my beneficiaries the people that I really, like, people haven't looked at this stuff in ages, and now it's like, oh, you have the time. I really need to really clean up my life in the event that something happens.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's great. All right, well, those are the questions we have. If any attendee wants to, you know, ask a question, let me see, we may have one more. Well, oh, sorry, and I missed this one a few minutes ago, but what other professionals do you recommend to include in the process?
In a divorce process, I think an emotional, you know, like a divorce coach or a life coach. I mean, somebody that's going to help you deal with the emotional side of it, because it's quite the roller coaster. Whether you're the person that's initiating the divorce or the person that, you know, had it sprung on them, it really doesn't matter. You might be dealing with guilt, you might be dealing with anger, disappointment. Even people who are normally not anxious or depressed can become situationally anxious or depressed. And so if you've never suffered with anxiety or depression, and all of a sudden you find yourself unable to focus or having heart palpitations, right, you really need to get an emotional coach that's going to help you deal with that. And that's not what the legal team is going to deal with, right? We're there to deal with the legal issues, but the legal team that you put together is not going to be able to deal with your anxiety or depression. And same thing with the financial advisor, right? If you are really not up to date on how you manage money, or like what your budget should be going forward, getting some financial help from someone that is a certified divorce financial planner is critical, because again, like, that's not really what a lawyer's supposed to be doing for you. Can I do it? Yes, at a very expensive hourly rate, right? So rather than have me work on your budget, talk to somebody that might even, a lot of them will even do like a free consult and kind of like help you figure out what your financial plan should look like. So those would be the key members. It's like the divorce coach, and then the also, if your children are not doing well, you want to make sure they have a therapist, somebody that they can talk to and feel comfortable with during that process. And then the financial advisor is that's the best part of the whole team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, any kind of support network in something like that. Yeah, whether it's financial, emotional, with your real estate needs, whatever it is, if you're going through that, it seems to me that's going to be critical.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me just check to see if we have any other questions. I think we are good. All right, Regina, just to sort of wrap up, I really do, appreciate all of your, all of your advice for people. I think it's just critical, during these times, that we keep things positive and we do our best, with our clients, with other folks we know, trying to help them through a difficult time. I know I'm doing a lot of that, with my clients who are seriously injured. I know you're doing that a lot, but if people have, like specific family law questions, or sort of personal, private matters that they want to contact you about, with their family law issues, how would they best do that?
The best way to reach me is either by email or phone. So you can call me at 240-621-0559 or email me at rad@reginademeo.com. Right, I'm going to try and do this. I don't know if it's going to actually work.
Okay.
But do you see my screen with my contact information?
Absolutely. It's up there. Okay, so that's the best way to contact you if people need more, specific information about their situation.
Yep.
All right, absolutely. All right, Regina, well, thank you very much. I hope you and your family are staying healthy. Certainly sounds like you've got a great positive attitude about everything, and see this as an opportunity and are taking action, and that's great. That's great to hear. I really appreciate it.
I'm trying, but I can't wait to have, that first family reunion. I've got to say, my brother's wedding got canceled, and that was really hard to have to deal with. So that first family reunion is going to be really amazing.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are looking forward to that. Absolutely. All right. Take care, Regina. Thank you very much.
Thanks, you too.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.